Thank you so much, Nobu-san, and good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So if you can put my slides on the screen, please. Thank you so much. So in my presentation, I will be very brief, basically, to update the participants here what the bank is doing, helping countries to better understanding the requirements, especially the reporting requirements under Article 6, and especially how as Vidya Shekhawat Ali mentioned, of course, like through, for example, partnership for market implementation, how we are helping countries to build necessary systems, processes, and procedures in place at the domestic level, so that the countries will be well prepared when it comes to meeting different requirements, especially under Article 6 of the Paris Agreement. Next slide, please. I think this is, of course, just an intro slide kind of thing. I'm sure many of you already looked into how this whole ecosystem would look like when it comes to the reporting, and then how the different systems that, of course, the UNFCCC set up, and then how it could potentially interact with other things, and then it, of course, also tries to explain, like, what's the role of secretariat and the different parties. Of course, it's a very busy slide. I'm sure actually you have looked already. It's a similar slide actually that is developed with the UNFCCC. We try to simplify a little bit and then put it in readable format, but it is still very busy and complicated slide. But of course, I think the bottom line is that as others mentioned already, and then Philip mentioned, and Simon confirmed as well. I mean, like, different countries need to get prepared for preparing this initial report, and then start collecting all the information that is needed in order to submit in a timely fashion. Next slide. So from our point of view, of course, like, the way that we are approaching and then helping countries is mainly on three things, especially to facilitate the data collection, and also, of course, like, introducing a certain processes at the domestic level, so that the proper decision making will be made and in accordance with the requirements. Starting with the inventory, I'm sure this is the one thing that, of course, countries have been doing for decades now, and then now, of course, with the direct linkages to the many things that we do, especially in the Article 6, like how actually we help countries to keep up to date actually with this inventory information, and then how basically we simplify the process of that, collecting that information, and then having that at one place. And then, of course, then there is data management system. Of course, some people call it as a national MRB system, where, of course, like the purpose is to quantify the emissions and emission reductions and the climate finance flows for different mitigation projects in different sectors. And then how do we actually track all of them, and then put it in a one centralized place, and then, of course, and then linking these different projects in different sectors to how this NDC has been formulated, so that the countries will have all the information in one place, so that they will see how much emission reductions are happening in each of the sector, how many of they are connected to the NDC, and of course there is again unconditional conditional target, and so on and so forth. I mean, that's basically what this data management system would try to contribute to that. And then, of course, finally, the register and the transaction registry, and several colleagues already mentioned about this one. This is one an area where many countries already started developing their own national registries, to record the carbon units, and then, of course, also to facilitate transfers, and then cancellations, and so on and so forth. So we are helping countries on all these three fronts, and then all are connected. And then if you see the next slide, so here, of course, you can see how this whole next slide. Oh, sorry. I mean, this is again just to separate out what are the different reporting requirements, and then how the different supporting infrastructure I have shown in the previous slide is going to help supporting collecting the information related to that thing, and then, so that, of course, this kind of a mapping will help us to see where gaps still exist with the some of the open source systems that the bank has developed, and then how basically that can be improved so that the countries will have all the information, including of course like and standardized and that agreed formats to be part of these systems that we developed so that countries can easily print and then of course submit to the even so that's not as simple as I just mentioned, because there are so many practical difficulties when it comes to data collection and then validation and then understanding that the data is presented in a way that is of course like useful, and then that serves the purpose, and then of course submitting the UNFCCC in a timely manner. Yeah, next slide. So this is of course the entire. I'm sure some of you already seen this slide of this whole thing. How no, sorry, go back to the previous slide. Um, Sorry, Lobson, can you go back to this? Yeah. So here, of course, like now, the centralized database, the national MRV system is one, of course, where we help countries to collect all the information and the mitigation projects, and then here, of course, we again now helping countries with MRV at the different levels, including actually an application of the digitalization of those MRV, so that the data from at least some of the projects can be collected on real-time basis into the national MRV system, and from there of course we will connect it to the registries, where of course again the bank is helping with open source registries to implement at the country level, and then potentially of course connecting those country level registries to the climate action data trust, which is of course a metadata layer where the all the information that is available in the connected registries will be made available to the market participants, so that that information will be used for different services by different yeah, the stakeholders in the market. And then of course obviously these systems will be connected to the national inventory, so that having this national inventories integrated as part of the MRV, and then of course MRV that connects the all the at least eligible projects, and then of course registries should facilitate basically the majority of the information that countries need to prepare these reports. Next slide. Of course, this is also one of the challenges, because like I'm sure there are so many market players that are planning to establish some kind of platforms where the information related to the carbon market transactions will be made available, and then of course like if countries that tries to utilize some of these platforms and then without having a comprehensive picture and the understanding of like what it means to them at the end of the day, and then how do we actually facilitate the data that is actually stored in many of these platforms, and then make sense of that one, so that the market will have a full transparency that is needed. But again, it's like just to highlight that one of this is fast evolving. It is becoming actually much more complex than one envisaged, and then but of course hopefully that all this ecosystem that out there will eventually help to bring more transparency and the liquidity to the markets. Next slide. This is my final slide. I think here is what actually I think what we are helping. I mean, it's like we are helping right now 17 countries. Of course, though um, um, the objective is also countries to implement the domestic carbon pricing instrument, but all of these countries are also seeking support from the bank on Article 6 operationalization, where we help them with the gaps assessment and then developing the policy framework, in which, of course, one of the major areas is also to look into the of course, authorization process, and then corresponding adjustment methods and etc. And then, of course, the core is the infrastructure development, where I just explained, and then, of course, the piloting, where the countries are already considering doing some kind of piloting or have identified some buyers to transact. Of course, like then we make use of the processes and then the systems that we develop to test basically how this actually serves the purpose, and then in the process identify the gaps so that those things will be filled. And we have of course also regional program, it's like sub-Saharan and then of course Pacific Islands program, where we are helping again countries mainly with the capacity building on different matters related to the particle 6. I would stop here and then happy to answer or clarify any questions and specifically and about other types of the support that the bank is provided in. Thank you so much. Back to you now.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Hari. As always, it was a very comprehensive presentation. Just before moving on to the next presenter, if you have any questions or if you wish to make any, please feel free to use the chat function. It is also available. So please write any of your questions or comments in the chat function so that we can go through them at a later stage. Okay, so the second presenter is Ms. Temulin Miran from IGES. Ms. Temulin, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully, okay. Can you see?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for everyone for joining today's working group. My name is Temulin. I work in IGS, and for today, I'm going to share what we do in IGS for capacity building activity for Article 6.2 reporting, which is a mutual learning program for enhanced transparency, MLP. And the mutual learning program is, first of all, to understand how to apply the reporting guidance under Article 6.2 and Article 13, and to explore improvement areas of countries for their next reporting to UNFCCC, and to strengthen a network between individuals and between organizations working on Article 6.2 reporting and 13 reporting. Here you can see the topics and participants for this reporting, and we have been working since 2020 and worked with the Thailand, Indonesia, and Mongolia and Bangladesh, and the colleagues from Bangladesh, they have also presented their activities. And for the activity, this is 7 months and totally online program. And what we do is we have 3 meetings during the activity and 2 reporting exercise. And then we do have exercise. That's because as an output, we think the tangible output that drafting reporting on Article 6 would be very useful for the countries and to be helpful for them to prepare their initial report. And here you can see the overview of the program, and we start contacting with the countries, what their interest, how they can participate in the program, and we have kickoff meeting. And for the kickoff meeting, we usually explain the concept of the program, and this MLP is pairing 2 or 3 countries in a group, and then in the group we discuss and we develop the reporting and we review each other's report. That is the first exercise, as you can see here. And in the exercise we develop the reporting and using GCM as example, and then we review each other's draft reports, because it's important to understand what other countries is doing and what other countries are reporting, how they are reporting. And so we that's what our first exercise. And at the main meeting, we present each other's present first exercise and explain what we developed and what are the questions that we would like to know from the other countries. So then we set the second exercise, and the second exercise mainly how to improve the first deliverables, which is initial report, annual information, and regular information. We draft all 3 reports as first exercise, and the second exercise we discuss how to improve. And sometimes we also receive a request from countries that they have specific exercise, specific topic that they would work on this MLP under the MLP. At the follow-up meeting, we present our second exercise and then review the program in overall, and then discuss what could be the next step for the program, as well as for each country, how they develop the Article 6.2 reporting. And here you can see the first exercise, and this is the draft hypothetical reporting using the GCM. Here we developed the virtual learning program template that we use for initial report, and this is developed based on the reporting outline. And here you can see that it is starting participating responsibilities that has the information on how the party ensures ratify the Paris Agreement and how their NDC communicated. So this is, I think, explained by the Secretariat in the previous slide. You can see we usually discuss and communicate through online. And here, second exercise, this is the first time that we worked on this agreed electronic format that was adopted last COP. And here we also, it was a challenging for the countries to understand, first of all, what is the requirement information that to be filled in the draft agreed electronic format. But we discussed, and then we put the information using the GCM. So the main discussion points in the MLP, that first of all, we talked about the terminologies for the reporting, how it can be applicable for the GCM context, and also exchanging views on the new terminologies from the agreed electronic format, and discussing how the GCM is contributing to NDC achievement and long-term low emission development strategies. That these are that is the part of the participation requirement. And also we share the information how to establish institutional arrangement for ITMO's authorization, because we also know this is very important for host countries, both host countries and also buying countries. And we deepen the understanding of corresponding adjustment concepts. As we know, this is very difficult for some countries. Not many countries are following the guideline and understanding what is it. And we also discuss how to develop a domestic arrangement for preparing this initial report. We know this has many it requires a lot of information to be reported, so it's important to have that arrangement within the country. And we also share views on how the GCM rules can be adapted in line with Article 6. And I just would like to also share the survey result with this participating countries in MLP and last year. And here, as you can see, briefly pointed out that what was the challenging part in the exercise through this mutual learning program, and countries had said understanding Article 6.2 guidance is very difficult for the countries, and also coordinating internally on the reporting information, as I mentioned, the reporting information extensive, and also collecting necessary data was a challenging part. And we also asked what was the official and most effective way to learn the guidance, and countries highlighted that developing own countries report, which is our first exercise, and the second exercise was the most effective way to understand, and also review pairing countries report, as we do in the main meeting and also follow-up meeting of mutual learning program. And in terms of the institutional arrangement for the reporting, and we received that some countries have been discussing and the arrangement has been under discussion, and then other countries it is there is no discussion as a point. And most challenging part in this participation requirement of Article 6 is that establishing this domestic arrangement for ITMOS authorization is the most challenging, as well as the tracking, developing registry system to tracking ITMOS, and also providing the most recent GHG inventory. And then the inventory is important for us to know this, to know the corresponding adjustment. And for the ITMOS authorization domestic arrangement, we got a result that some countries have initiated internal discussion. However, some countries have not developed that initial discussion, or their process to develop the discussion is unclear at this point. And the challenges for this establishing domestic arrangement, especially this ITMOS authorization, is first of all lack of understanding of the Article 6 in relevant ministries. Because authorization is a government approach, we need all ministry to involve that authorization. And second of all, this coordination between ministries still difficult. And also development of official documents often take time, so that's also challenging at the national level. And we also had a survey within the GCM partner countries, and here you can see the result is very similar with the previous survey that we conducted with the mutual learning program countries. And here you can see these participation responsibilities, what is the most difficult to meet. And here first is the highest is this tracking ITMOS, developing registry system. The second highest is the ITMOS authorization domestic arrangement, and then also its participation to NDC and long-term strategies. For here, you see this, what is the priorities for capacity building under the Article 6.2, and most countries mentioned corresponding adjustment concept is needed, and also support for initial report and regular information is as well as important, and also that tracking ITMOS registry system is highest priority. And the second highest is this further understanding Article 6.2 guidance, and also authorization arrangement at the domestic level. And based on these results and our activities, I would like to end my presentation with lesson learned and capacity building needs that can be taken further. And first, we understood that there is a limited understanding of Article 6 guidance, especially ITMOS and the corresponding adjustment method. We have been discussing this for many years, but still there's a limited understanding, and also reporting requirement, including this new draft agreed electronic format. And the second point is this practical exercise, such as what we are doing, this actually drafting report itself. It's very helpful to understand the guidance, and also it helps countries to identify gaps on the reporting requirement as well as the data collection. We want to know where we are now and what is lacking. The third point is we think there's support is needed on domestic arrangement on ITMOS authorization, as well as the registry system for tracking ITMOS. And fourth is there is a need to increase capacity building on relevant ministries for domestic arrangements, because we have been talking about Article 6 within this limited audience, but in order to implement this mechanism, we need a broader relevant ministries participation. So there is a need to enhance that capacity, and that would affect on this ITMOS authorization as well as the reporting. The last point that we would like to highlight is that support and capacity building should be flexible, and also it should meet the need of the countries, the receiving countries. That's very important. And thank you very much for your attention. And please, if you want to details, please go to our website. And if you also would like to work with us on this mutual learning program, we are happy to work with you. Thank you very much. And back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Timulin, for the updates on the mutual learning program. So the final presenter is Ms. Suzanne Conrad, UNEP CCC. Ms. Conrad, yes, I would like to hand over the floor to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the invitation, and it's a pleasure to be here. I understand that you will be sharing my presentation, or yes, okay, perfect. Thanks a lot. Yes, thank you so much, everyone. A pleasure to be here. My name is Susanne Conrad. I'm a project officer here at the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center with a background primarily in transparency. And in my presentation, I will tell you a bit what we here at the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center do to assist countries in getting ready for reporting on Article 6. Next slide. Just a bit of background on the UNEP Copenhagen Climate Center for those that don't know us. The center has existed for over 30 years, also has changed the names a couple of times. We are now fully integrated into UNEP and also help deliver their strategy and their goals. We support developing countries in many different areas, ranging from energy efficiency, policy implementation, NDC implementation, mitigation analysis, transport. And now recently we are also engaging in Article 6 readiness, also building on a kind of vast experience on the former CDM times, where we also have the CDM pipelines and other projects, and also have a big portfolio of different transparency projects. So yeah, you can see the three different focus areas here: policy, transparency, implementation, which of course have a strong interlinkages between those areas. Next slide. So to move to the support that we provide on reporting on Article 6. So we have kind of two different entry points. We have a lot of projects and programs supporting countries in getting ready for Article 13, so on transparency, but we also have a number of projects on Article 6, and they're of course closely interlinked. Countries have to put in place, as we also heard from the UNFRPC presentation, countries have to put in place rigorous transparency systems, MRV systems, as kind of precondition to engage and account for cooperative approaches. And importantly, countries also have to report on their cooperative approaches in their biannual transparency reports, in addition to the initial reports. So there are a lot of linkages, and here at the UNEP CCC we have two major programs that I would like to highlight to you today. The first program on Article 6 is the Supporting Preparedness for Article 6 Cooperation program, or also short SPARC, called SPARC program. And the second program is the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Global Support Program, called CBGSP. I apologize for all the acronyms, but these are the two kind of big programs that I would like to highlight to you today, and that have relevance for reporting on Article 6. So the next slide. So a bit about the SPARC project, and to provide you some background. It's a 5-year program funded by the International Climate Initiative, ICI, and with a budget of 20 million, not USD, but euros. And it's implemented by 5 partners in 4 countries under the leadership of 3GI. And the objective is basically to support the 4 developing countries that you also see here: Colombia, Pakistan, Thailand, and Zambia, in building capacity to use Article 6 cooperative approaches and to engage the private sector in NDC implementation and ambition raising. So it's really about Article 6 readiness. So if you go to the next slide, here you see the kind of the different elements, project elements that are covered in the projects. It's quite a comprehensive project covering both kind of in-country national activities with the country readiness support, but also has 2 global activities with a community of practice of Article 6 implementing countries that has been launched already and is now in place. And the idea is basically to foster knowledge sharing between countries. And another major component is the Article 6 toolbox, where handbooks and implementation guides will be developed. Yes, on the next slide, when zooming in on the kind of more national activities, it's a lot of activities to be covered in this readiness support. But just to highlight, on top, you see that there's also advice on MRV registry and reporting. So this is kind of the more relevant activity that relates to reporting on Article 6. Yes, on the next slide, just provides a quick overview of the Article 6 toolbox that is to be developed. There's no specific guide on the reporting on Article 6, but of course it's integrated in some of the guides, like such as the host country governance framework. So it will be kind of indirectly covered in these guides, which are to be developed throughout the project. So it's a 5-year project, and there's a sort of lessons learned coming out from the country implementation. But these are the initial ideas for the guides. Yes, yeah. So this was a quick overview of the Spark project, which has some elements on the reporting of Article 6, but it's of course mainly related to readiness. Also, just to highlight that I'm not directly involved in this project, but I'm happy to relate any kind of specific detailed question back to my colleague Karen Olsen, who is in charge of this big Spark project, and also other Article 6 activities that we have here in the center. Yes, if you go to the next slide. So the other project I wanted to highlight and I'm actually involved in is actually a big transparency project called the Capacity Building Initiative for Transparency Global Support Program, CBGSP. It's a global transparency project funded by the GEF, implemented by UNEP and executed by us. It's a 5-year project with a budget of roughly $9 million USD, and it's a merging and continuation of 2 previous GEF transparency projects, the CBIT Global Coordination Platform, which is also hosted by us, and the UNDP UNEP Global Support Program, which supported many countries in the submission of national communications in BOR. So it's really transparency project, and the main objective of this new CBIT GSP project is to support countries in the transition to the BTRs, and to the F in general, but also to help countries in the last submissions of the BORs. We hear that there are still countries submitting the last BORs before they move to the BTRs. And of course, the continued submission of national communications. And the idea is also to provide a one-stop shop for transparency through a global transparency website that we will be launching in June at the SBs. And it focuses also to mainstream gender considerations in transparency as one of another aspects of the project. If you go to the next slide. So this global project has many different support modalities, both for global, regional, and national activities. Kind of one of the main support modality that we have is that we have 10 regional transparency network, basically covering all developing countries around the world, and that are coordinated through regional transparency network coordinators in the regions basically. And 2 of the networks we coordinate closely with UNDP, another climate promise initiative that is a Francophone and Lusophone cluster. But this is kind of the main access points to the countries to have these transparency networks and the regional activities. We also provide direct support to countries based on their needs and prioritized areas, based on support requests that we get from countries on specific transparency activities, which could be training, which could be modeling for NDC, which could be filling of templates for the BTR. So it could be various activities related to transparency. We, of course, also provide in-country trainings activities, have regional and global workshops. We also review transparency reports before they are submitted to the UNFCCC. So we have been, I think, reviewing up to 20 reports, so national inventory reports, BORs, and Cs. That have been shared by countries to us, and we do like an initial review and kind of point out where things could be improved, just to avoid that there will be a lot of comments in the actual review process and the UNFCCC. So it's a kind of streamlining the reporting and review process. There will be an updated gender toolkit for transparency, and we will also develop a number of knowledge products based on what comes out from the needs of countries. Yes, so it's a really needs-based project, and we try to be as flexible as possible to respond to countries' needs. On the right-hand side, you see the regional transparency networks, covering the different globes basically. On the next slide, Yes, just one slide about this one-stop shop for transparency, or the kind of the global transparency website that we are planning. So the idea is basically to have like one place to go to get all your transparency information, to get all the transparency reports from countries, to get all the information on transparency projects, knowledge products, events, news, everything related to transparency in the wider sense. And the idea is to really have it owned by all the different transparency stakeholders. So people from the different agencies from countries will have profiles and be able to edit and upload information. And it's really, to have one go-to place for transparency, because it's quite spread right now across the different transparency support providers. And it's currently under development. We start the testing soon, and we'll probably also reach out to a few of you to help with testing. And the idea is to launch the platform at the SPs in Bonn. And some of the features that the platform will have will, of course, be country profiles, agency profiles, calendar for upcoming events, knowledge library. There will also be a dedicated space for the regional transparency networks with a dedicated forum, so where people from the countries, the experts from the countries, can engage in different discussions and really help to help knowledge sharing and foster this knowledge exchange. So this is upcoming, and I'm happy to share information once it's launched. And on the next slide, just to give you an update on where we are in the project. We have only started last year, and we've launched right now. We have launched 6 regional transparency networks, among other in Asia and the Pacific, but also in Anglophone Africa, Francophone Africa, also in the Caribbean and LAC in Latin America. 2 networks, the Francophone and Lusophone cluster, are already in place with UNDP, and we are going to launch 2 more networks in the very near future. We also have nomination for thematic focal points in each of the countries. So we have focal points for NDC tracking, inventory, and the different ETF supporting areas basically, and we'll engage the experts in different activities based on the kind of the different thematic workshops that we will be holding. We've also conducted kind of comprehensive capacity needs assessment in each of the networks, where we get responses from most of the countries, and to basically identify needs, priorities, what are the biggest challenges in the countries. And several countries actually showed interest in support for Article 6 reporting. I'm just mentioning 2 here now. Lao PDR want to have like basic understanding of Article 6. In Malaysia want to have like specific support on other Article 6 reporting. And based on these capacity needs assessment, we developed work plans for this year to cater to these needs. We have chosen to not focus on Article 6 reporting this year because we saw that there's a lot of other kind of more pressing transparency needs in the regions, in the countries, kind of still basic understanding of inventories, the MPGs, NDC tracking. But we stand ready to support countries in this in the future, after we kind of covered more kind of the basic areas. But we definitely see a need in country to get more support on Article 6. And we also, just to highlight that, we have like a support request template where countries can submit support requests for specific transparency activities, for specific transparency need that they covered, that they want to have covered, and they can submit it to us, and we try to cover it as much as possible, either internally or also in collaboration with other transparency partners like ICAT, PADPA, and so we really stand ready to receive support requests from countries and respond to them in a timely manner. Yes. Next slide, please. Yes, so that was kind of the two major programs we have, but we also have other kind of Article 6 activities ongoing that are kind of have relevance for the reporting. We have kind of a development of carbon market transformational change tools under the Initiative for Climate Action Transparency, ICAT, which will cover some kind of reporting format for Article 6 and sustainable development and transformation change impacts. So this is ongoing, and where we also collaborate with other partners on for the development of this toolbox. And there's another kind of interesting project upcoming, the integrated assessment for Article 6. It's a EU-funded project. It has not started yet, but it will also cover kind of a toolbox of technical modules, and the technical modules will also cover the areas of MRV and transparency based on previous experience that we have on the ICAT project in Costa Rica, and their experience and with the CINAMEC, their kind of climate change information system. So these are ongoing and upcoming activities that we have here, lots of many different activities, but we try to kind of streamline across kind of the Article 6 and the Article 13 people here internally, because they're of course closely related. Yes, and the next slide, I think it's just the final slide. Yes, please reach out to us if you have any question on the kind of global transparency projects, but also on any other Article 6 programs that we have here internally, and we're happy to coordinate, collaborate, or help in any regard. Thank you so much. Back to you, Chair.